Stress is killing people. It's making people sick, and it is the number one reason for why we are in this constant state of anxiety, overwhelm, and being stuck. My client came in with Bell palsy, which was essentially like a physical paralysis of the face, and she was having like massive reaction to her stress. This is not the first time that I've dealt with this, and what I took her through was immediate stress relief, and then changing that to actually creating calm and creating almost joy before happiness. And this is a simple process, but it requires you to take three things into consideration. So in this episode, I'm going to dive into the three things that I take all of my clients through when they come in with physical responses to the stress that they're having, because stress is making people sick. Stress is the constant, incessant highs and lows that we experience that impact us on a physical level and then in our relationships. And if it's impacting you like this, then you already know that it actually makes you difficult to be around and people are starting to disconnect from you. This is going to solve that. Three things that you can do immediately. If you're ready for that, let's dive in. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to this week's episode of the podcast. We're diving into something so important that it should have been dealt with forever. It is the chronic state of stress that most people are stuck in this current condition that we are going through. There is a mental health epidemic that's going on, and it has become so bad that no matter how hard you work, no matter what you're doing, people are getting sick because of the stress that they're having. Now, the stress, it creates a chronic state of inflammation in your body. The bad feelings, the bad emotions, the physical responses. It is induced by the state of the mind and what's going on outside in your world and how we interpret it. And also it's induced by the lifestyle that we live. And I want to talk to you about three things that you can do to take total control of it. This is so important because, I don't think there's anyone that can escape the current state of the world and the stress that it induces. If you look at the news, if you look at social media, if you look at your own life and look around, what's going to happen is that very often you will have this negative inflow of information that creates this response from you. And even if you don't want to create that response, even if you are like me and you actually block out all of the negativity as much as you can, it still seeps in. And when it does, it comes in usually through people who are close to you or through your work or some circumstance that you yourself personally are going through in your life. And if you stay in this chronic state of stress, it will, for long enough, then what it will actually do is it will make you sick. I want to explain to you that this is actually, this is lessons from therapy. This is the science of the Nafs psychology. And although this is not therapy and it's not a replacement for therapy, but you can use what I will share with you in this to actually start to help yourself without any external need. Now, to help yourself, you need to be able to understand first. So what I want you to do is pay close attention to what we're talking about here and really try and grasp it and allow it to sit in. A lot of times we're in a hurry because we're stressed out, because we are in this chronic state of stress. We feel bad, we feel anxious, we feel angry and resentful because of the way life has turned out. We start to have reactive behavior with our spouses, our children. We start to have reactive behavior in our workplace. And what it does is that it creates results that are otherwise you'd see them as negative. And those results further induce more stress. And so you can get caught in this cycle of things happening in your life that create more reason for you to be stressed. And when you get stressed, ultimately what's happening is that you have a mental and physical response to your stress. Now, the stress itself is something that you're experiencing. The inducers or the triggers are the things from your circumstance, the people around you. Maybe it's an argument, maybe it's just something someone said. And whatever is causing it from the outside is how we then internalize it that creates this problem. And the internalizing of it creates a string of, other behaviors, a domino effect, if you like, which actually creates worse results for us. So as an example, my client is struggling with her marriage, and as a result of the struggling with marriage, she is seriously working hard, trying to make everything work, like juggling everything. She's running the house, she's working, she's doing all of those things. And in order to deal with her stress, what she's doing is that she's working harder. And very often for us who are, very ambitious in the world, what we tend to do is become productive. And once you become productive, what you will do is that you start to take on a whole bunch of things. And it's almost like a distraction mechanism that we're using, and we're not aware of it. And now you're aware of it, but it's a distraction mechanism, and we're distracting ourselves from the problems that we're having. And the problem that we're having, maybe it started off in the marriage, maybe it started off in my parenting, or maybe it's, something from the past that I'm, avoiding. And as we get caught in those problems, what happens is that we start to feel stressed, and increasingly stressed. The more we think about it, the more we fester on it. And if you get caught in this and you stay in this, then it creates a physical response in your body. Very often when we are highly stressed, you may be feeling anxious, you may be feeling depressed and sad, you may be just feeling really angry and resentful. And whatever it is that you're feeling, or maybe the overwhelm of too many things to do, because now that you've taken on so much, it's difficult to manage. And so when that happens, what we get caught in is this chronic low mood, right? And the chronic low mood, what it will do is that you'll keep yourself busy to try and avoid feeling bad, because no one wants to feel bad. So we keep busy with doing more work, more things on our to-do list. We become, proactive, if you like. And this is actually one of the reasons for why people, work themselves into burnout. But we become proactive. So we start learning more, doing more, acting more. We start to take on more responsibilities, more projects, more business, more work, all of these things. And we're doing it. And what's happening is that we're masking the actual problem itself. We're not dealing with the problem itself. Whatever has triggered the stress, be it your family, be it your relationships, be it your circumstances, be it just something in your life that you're unhappy about. And that stress, when you try and avoid it, what will happen is that you will do all of these things to avoid it. And in doing those things, you create more stress. It usually comes in the form of overwhelm or, resentment of the way that life is now, because we're constantly stuck in this stressful, low mood moment, if you like. So you have a low mood moment in your day, it impacts the rest of your day. And so for many of us, what we do is that we just keep on in this cycle of activity and doing more and focusing on what we should be doing. And all it does is that it creates the constant state of flux. You're up and down. And if you're in this constant state of up and down, you're in a chronic state of stress, then that has a chemical response in your body. And the chemical response in your body, by way of, the hormones that are released, then what's happening is that you're 1 minute you're on a high, next minute you're on a low. And when you're like this for a prolonged period of time, it impacts you physically. People have blood pressure problems. This creates the symptoms of cardiac arrest. Cardiologists will look at your symptoms that you're getting. If you're having any cardiac issues, the first thing that they're going to be looking at is, is this stress induced or is this something physical, before they go on to actually looking at what the problem is. So the thing is, like, that initial assessment is because we know that your heart starts racing. You start to feel pain in your heart, literally, when you have this chronic state of stress. So if you are in the, this chronic state, like, it actually impacts you on a physical level. This is why I say your mind induces inflammation, right? So it does it in two ways. One is that your mind is actually what controls your entire body, right? So if you think about, like, what controls everything, like if you're like from an IT background, like a CPU, a central processing unit, it actually controls the whole system, right? Everything, it is the processing unit. Your mind is the processing unit. And we know that this is what creates the problem for us, the way that we internalize everything, whether it's thinking about your past, whether it's thinking about the future, whether it's, getting moody because of what you anticipate going wrong. And when you're in this state of emotional flux, you're in a state of stress. And the stress response is very much physical. The stress response is very much physical, because even when we're talking about there being a chemical response in the body, a chemical response in the body changes your biology. That's physical. So what will happen is that, you have, reactions from the body that, like the cardiac issues, like Bell's palsy, like different medical conditions that happen as a result of this build-up of stress. And so what we want to do is we want to actually release the stress and release it on a daily basis, because in the world that we live in, you're going to find that you're always going to have something in your environment that will be a reason for you to stress. And to understand what stress is induced ultimately by the mind, and the inducers or the triggers maybe in your circumstances, maybe in your life, maybe your relationship, maybe your spouse, maybe your children, maybe the interactions you're having with them. And if that is happening to you, then what normally happens is that we go to these different behaviors to try and cope with it. And I want you to share with you just these 3 things that you can do immediately that will help you release the stress. I suggest that you actually practice this for the next 30 days, just to actually get a feel of what it's like to actually do this. Now, these 3 things, I often talk to my clients about this when we look at their lives, when we're doing an assessment of what's actually happening in their lives, and we deconstruct their life, their mind, their emotions, the behaviors, their world, what's happening in their life. What we always come back down to is a number of different factors, but from those factors, I always recommend these things for people in order to get almost immediate relief. So if you want to get immediate relief, you want to start using these 3 things immediately. And it doesn't matter if you're doing them simultaneously or you do them one at a time. There's no right or wrong way about doing this, but just get active in doing this. So I'll give it to you in reverse order of priority. So let me just tell you what you can do immediately to do that. So number 1, 3 things that you can do immediately to reduce the stress or take it under control at the very least. Change your environment. Now, what I mean by changing your environment is your physical environment. That doesn't mean that you got to move homes. That doesn't mean that you got to leave and abandon everyone. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is that a quick response to changing the chemical reactions in your body is to actually physically induce it. And one of the ways that we can do that is by changing the environment. So you can leave your home, go for a walk. You can, if you are regularly walking anyway, go for a run, go for a jog, but do something that is, inducing like a chemical response in your body, because that's exactly what will happen. And what will happen is that if you go out, and I'll give you an example of this. Like I was struggling at one point in my life with chronic inflammation, like inflammation of the joints, and like almost like arthritis pains, and I was having it as a stress response in my body, and I would feel it regularly, and I tried many different things to relieve it, and one of the things that struck me as soon as I did it, and when I say struck me, I mean what struck me was the relief that I got, was that the minute I became physical, and it wasn't the physical of doing resistance training, weights. That's not the kind of physical I'm talking about. It's something more cardiovascular. So I was in my car, I was feeling this stress, and it was coming through in my fingers. I would feel it in my fingers. Some people feel it in their back, some people in their gut, people feel it in different places. But I was feeling it in my fingers, and it's like an arthritis pain. And so what I did, and it would also come into my face, and I would feel it in my face, like the tightening of my body, right? So when your body tightens, like naturally what happens is when your body tightens, you feel pain, right? Now that doesn't always happen, but generally speaking, that's what will happen. If your body tightens, you feel pain, you feel tense. So in that state, what I did was exactly what I'm telling you that you can do, is that I got out of my car and I started walking, and then I started jogging. And as I started jogging, like you're oxygenating your body. So immediately there's a physical change in your body. And as you create this physical change in your body, your breathing changes, your heart races, or the pace of heart changes. As you're doing this, then what's happening is that there's a hormone response, like, there's a release of hormones. And as there is this release of hormones, what happens is like the runner's high, like people who run on a regular basis, they get addicted to it because there's a hormone release when you go running. And when you go running, when you go jogging, there's this hormone release and it makes you feel good. So serotonin, dopamine, like we're talking like it makes you feel better immediately. And the reason you feel better is because there's a biological change in your body. So if you did this, like it's so simple that all you had to do is get out of your house and actually start walking. And if walking's not a problem, then start jogging, start running. And as you do that, what will happen is that immediately you give yourself relief. Now, you don't have to run a marathon, so you don't have to induce stress, because obviously when you're doing a marathon, like there's going to be, cortisol, there's going to be like stress within that as well. But I'm saying that if you just went for a quick, brisk walk or run or a jog, immediately what will happen is that your physiology changes. As soon as your physiology changes, the chemical composition of your body changes, you feel better, right? So this is one of the things that you can do. And this is a reliever, but it's not a solution. The solution is number 3, but this is a reliever and it will give you instant relief, inshallah. So this is number 1. Number 2 is that you want to, if you think about changing your physiology, changing your mental, emotional, physical state of body, what you need to do is do these 3 things. But the second one is really important, because what you put into your body creates your body. I want you just to understand that. What you put into your body creates your body. And a simple fix to this, something that will help you, over a short period of time, and this requires you to actually do number 3 so that you can even get to this. Something that you can do is that have a high-fat diet. High-fat diet, low carbs, no sugars. Now, this isn't forever. I'm just saying that this is something that, because this is something that we are already doing, but we're doing it in the opposite. When you feel stressed, when people get stressed, when people feel anxious, angry, frustrated, stuck, what we tend to do is that we go to behaviors that make us feel better. One of those behaviors is eating junk. Like we eat junk. And when I say junk, what we're talking about is eating, carbs, sugars, like starchy foods, like the things that would give you a quick glucose hit. And of course, if you have a glucose hit, change in physiology and you feel a little bit better, but it's very, very short-lived, right? But the effects of it is long. Root cause of disease. Like if we're talking about the world today, like when we're talking about physical disease, not just, let's just say both physical and mental disease, one of the root causes of it is the lifestyle, what we eat. So the thing is, if you change your gut biology, ultimately, that's what we're talking about. Like when you change, you're not just changing your gut. When you change what you consume, you change what your body is made up of. And ultimately, your mind is a part of your body. So the thing is, when you change that, then automatically you will start to solve the long-term problem. And I say the first one is immediate. The second one, number 2, eat high-fat diet, low carbs, no sugars, because the sugar is the food of all disease, right? Like simple sugars. I mean, like refined, all of the stuff that people love, the cream cakes, the sugars, all of the things that, I myself, I admit, I love these things, but so does everyone else. And why do we love these things? Because it gives us that immediate hit. But in the long term, it feeds mental, physical disease. And what we want to do is we want to stop that. So in the short term, if you did this, and you did this slowly, so that you don't have this sudden reaction of the body. It's like taking a drug away from someone who's addicted. So because ultimately we are at that level now with the sugars. But if you change that, it changes your physiology. So that's what it does. So these two things change your physiology. The third one is the most important one, and this is because it is the hub of your stress. It's the state of your mind. The mind is the key to releasing that stress. And the way that I want you to think about this is that it's your response to the world around you. How you respond to the world around you, meaning how you perceive it, how you think about it, creates the stress or reduces the stress. When you choose to engage in negative, incessant thinking, then what will happen is that from that negative, incessant thinking, you will have a lot of emotional responses. Right? Those emotional responses might be sadness, it might be anger, it might be frustration, whatever it may be. But when you have this state of constant stress being induced by your mind, and when you're in this state, what do we normally do? We start eating rubbish. We start, not taking care of ourselves. We start becoming complacent with ourselves, our own health. And when you do that, what it will do is that it will impact your whole body. So your mind, your thinking, I want you to think about this. Your thinking is controlling your body. Think about this. When you get excited, when you get really, really excited about something, what happens? Like when you get excited, you have a release in hormones, and very often we call it like we're charged like batteries, and we're so excited, so motivated, and we can just run out and do loads of things. When you are anxious, you have a different response. You have this high stress response. And under the high stress response, what we do is that we start to disconnect, we start to conflict, we start to argue, we start to shut down, we start to have like gut problems. Like, if you have IBS symptoms, like if you're having gut symptoms, if you have toilet issues, is very much related to stress, which is affecting your gut, which affects like your entire system. So if you think about this, like what creates anxiety, what creates your state of excitement, it is your mind. And so your thoughts, they have the power to make you well as make you sick. Right? I want you to really think about this. Your thoughts will make you sick if you stay in this state of constant frustration, anger, overwhelm, anxiety, depression. Like if you stay in this thinking, then what it will do is that it will cause you problems. And the problems initially is that you feel bad, right? But if you feel bad for long enough, if you think about this, your thoughts, it's the content of your mind, it's the control lever of your mind. And if you are controlling your body through your thinking, through your mind, then what's happening is that you are controlling whether you are sick or you are well. And I'll give you an example of this. Like my own example of this is that, I recall a time when I was extremely stressed for 6-7 week period, extremely stressed every single day with a project that was highly stressful. And in that stress, what happened was that your immune system is compromised. And your immune system is the physical response system that looks after you. So Allah created us with an immune system that protects us, not makes us sick. But when the mind is taking you down, then what it's doing is that it's inducing that chronic state of stress. That chronic stress in your body, like if you imagine, it changes the biology of your body. Like the biology is changing. And with that, what happens is that if you are in this chronic state, meaning that you're constantly in this state, then what's going to happen is that you have physical reactions like the arthritis pains, like fibromyalgia, like the back pains, like back spasms, like the different challenges that we're having. Physical pain, it's a very physical response, and you tantamount to you being sick, and it's coming from what? It's coming from your thinking. Just in the same way as when you're excited and when you are really like loving your life, what it does is that induces joy, induces happiness, induces emotions that are driving behaviors and a physical response in your body that makes you want to go out, look after yourself, work out, eat well, do all of the things that you wouldn't otherwise do if you were stressed. So your mind is the hub of all that stress. And it is all being created in there by the way that you are thinking about your world, thinking about your spouse, thinking about your kids, thinking about your job, thinking about your life. And so what is really important is to disengage with the negative thinking as it arises. You are having in your life negative emotions arising on a regular basis when you are in this chronic state of stress. And it's happening because we get caught in the negative thinking. And I want you to think about the negative thinking as though it's waswas, or it's just something that is questionable, because most of the time we don't question it. And what that does for us is that it makes us get stuck in that state of negative thinking. And if you get stuck in the state of negative thinking, it's cyclical. It's like you have this, this thought that your husband or your wife is awful, and they're not very nice, and your relationship's awful, and why did my life end up like this? Why is my relationship like this? And before you know it, like, you're feeling stressed, you're feeling resentful, you're feeling anxious, you're thinking, what about my future? And there's this follow-on thinking, and all of that compounded creates the state of stress and anxiety. And when you get stuck in that, and you're stuck in that for long periods of time, it creates other problems like dark, incessant thinking, the kind of thinking that actually makes us not want to continue in our marriage or in our lives or in the workplaces. And we want to create change, but we want to create change because we're trying to escape our lives. And that's not the best way to deal with it. So the best way to actually deal with it is that your thinking is creating your life, right? And when you understand this, you want to start slowing it down and actually recognizing it's this. Like, do the first two because it will help you significantly in your physical health, and do this one because it controls your physical health as well as your mental health. And as you do this, what you're going to do is you're going to start to de-stress. Now, as I said to you, this is educational, and this isn't a replacement for therapy, but I want you to understand that this is what I train coaches and therapists in, and I show them how this works. And when you are using this in your life on a daily basis, and you're only going to know this, not just by watching this video, but by actually doing it. When you actually do it, what's going to happen is that your state of stress is going to be managed in the beginning. And once it's managed and you start to relieve the stress on a regular basis, I mean, you could just leave your home and go for a run every day if you wanted to. Do resistance training, do some running, do anything that actually gets you physically moving so that you have that physical response in your body. And then at the same time, you're drinking water, you are actually taking care of yourself, and you're taking care of yourself by cutting out all of the rubbish. Like, get rid of the sugar, because sugar is the food of disease. And as you do that, and I know that sounds like such a blanket, drastic statement, but try this. Try cutting it out for a couple of days and see how you feel. See if there's this addiction feeling to it. And then you'll know the impact it's having on your physical health. And watch, if you do this for 7 days, how it impacts your mind. And the key to this is that you must be managing the state of your mind and how you are perceiving your life every day. And when you do that, you will change your chronic stress forever. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us a solution to all of this. Like, it's not possible that Allah would send you to this earth and not give you a solution that you can solve this with. Now, these are the things that you can do, but let me tell you, let me give you a bonus on this. Like, the bonus is actually the most important. You're thinking the stress hub doesn't have to be a stress hub. It can actually be the hub of comfort and joy and ease in your life. This is the heart, right? And the Prophet ﷺ said about this heart, إِذَا صَلَحَتْ صَلَحَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ. If you make it sound, if you make it good, the whole of the body is going to be good. So that's what we want. We want a physical body which is good, a mental state which is good. And the best way to do this is to connect your heart, as in connect your mind and your thinking and your life to the creator of all solutions, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when you do that, what we're talking about is nurturing a level of belief and trust that is making you feel good about your life. Like, change what you believe about yourself, your life, your creator, and what will happen is that all of this begins to dissipate. Like, inshallah, I know this is a lot, and you probably have to listen to this a number of times to really grasp all of it. But as you start to implement this into your life, you're going to find that stress reduces. You start taking control of your mind, your emotions, your life, your relationships. Everything will be impacted by this when you start doing this, inshallah. So I'm going to leave you on that. JazakumAllahu. Hey guys, thanks for listening in on this podcast. If you are ready to uplevel your mind, emotions, and relationships using a Quranic solution, you're going to love this podcast and what we are going to be sharing over the coming episodes. This is the most fundamental training that you're going to go through in your life. You can use it to transform your life, your mental and emotional health, your relationships, how you parent, how you are in your marriage, and truly your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you are loving this and you want more of it, click subscribe, or if you want one of our free trainings, go to themuslimlifecoach.org and sign up for the free training. You're going to love it. I'll see you on the inside. JazakumAllahu khair.